Hey, it's JT from Hoagie's Garage. I am in a vehicle here which is obviously not new. You can tell by the opera gray interior. This is not something you would find nowadays in showrooms. What I'm in here is a 1996 Impala SS. This is going to be the basis of the project car which I've been working on the engine rebuild in the garage the past month or so. Little history behind this car. I was there the day this car was picked up from the dealership, as in I was in 8th grade when my dad bought this car. So with that being said, I've seen this car from day one. It's been an interesting car in the life of our family because my dad bought it for work, for vacations, for us, the whole family, the four of us, to go take the tribe cross country, you know, that whole thing. And it's still around. And the reason, though, I'm driving this and reviewing it and having a project out of it is because I'm going to take possession of this car for my family. I normally drive an LS1 Camaro, and that's just not really fitting everybody anymore. So that's why I'm in this car. This is just sort of a little bit of a, I don't know what you want to call it, teaser to the whole project, I guess you could say. My take on the car as it is now, and as you watch more videos, kind of check the website, I'm going to talk more about what is going on with this car. As it sits and as I'm driving it now, 179,000 miles on the clock. And if you know anything about the 96 Impalas, and I'm pretty sure that's the only year for the analog gauges on the dash, the odometer is digital. It says 179,000, but it is kind of like Roger Rabbit disappearing, reappearing ink, as in some days it appears, some days it's gone. I do have the fix to do that, and that'll be on the website as well, which if you're an Impala guy, B-body guy, you should know kind of what that's all about. Anyways though, in stock trim, this car came with 260 horsepower, 330 foot-pounds of torque, LT1 V8 out of the Corvette, slightly detuned. You wouldn't know it though when you drive this thing because it runs like amazingly good, and I've seen this thing run from new till now. So in those 180,000 miles, it's done a great job. Minor maintenance done to it, fuel pump, water pump, OptiSpark was replaced at one point, but not because of any major issues. The only real major modifications done to this powertrain wise, K&N cold air intake, plastic mass airflow sensor for Granatelli, Borla catback, and I believe some underdrive pulleys. So, I mean, if you figure losing horsepower over the years, this is probably close to stock in some form, but you wouldn't really know it because, to be honest, it feels like it's closer to 300 horse than 260. It just runs great. Interior, for the most part, has little to no wear on it other than the driver's seat that has obviously 180K on it. My dad pretty much drove this by himself for the most part. We took it on vacations here and there. I rode in that back seat right there to Florida many times, but most of the wear is right here. So the driver's seat, the plan is to get that rebuilt. Most people look at this car, it doesn't look like much. It's just a black sedan. You have people going, why are you driving a police car? What are you doing with that? So it doesn't command a lot of attention other than to normal car guys. So if you're watching this, I'm assuming you know what the car is. You're not a regular consumer debating between this and a new Ford Fusion. Looks wise, it has some different modifications done on the exterior. Billet black grille, debadged with the Impala logo is gone, so you really can't tell what this is for the most part. The major modifications though to this that make this thing so fun to drive, as you can hear, mostly intake sound there. Suspension, literally you name a part, it's been done on this car. From Hotchkiss sway bars to Coney shocks. It does have the rear control arms that have extended the wheels to center them. It's been lowered with I-box springs. It has urethane bushings everywhere, which has sacrificed a little bit of ride comfort, and you can sort of hear our 90s GM interior rattling in here a little bit, but not too bad like my Camaro. But for the most part, it is a very comfortable ride still. It does have Goodyear Eagle F1 tires on it, and with being lowered in the exterior modifications, it does look very, very sleeperish. So the point of this project, as I said, kind of updating this car, making it better than it is now, sort of improving on things. The LT1 I'm building to put in there is a 383 stroked engine from Golan. I have trick flow heads, headers, everything to make it, in my opinion, a decent runner. Transmission's been upgraded by Gearstar here in Akron, so not a lot that needs to be done, obviously, other than the engine, but it should be a fun project to do. If I run through my foibles and things I dislike about this car, right now I'm sort of sweating because the air isn't working. Yeah, that's a bummer, but we do have all the parts to redo that when the engine is in there and pulled out, and then we have the room to work in there. I really dislike not having auxiliary input. So for that, I went to a company called One Factory Radio. They're on eBay mostly, but they do have a store and a website. They make a factory Delco unit. They refurbish it. They put new lights in, new buttons, new knobs, everything. And they add Bluetooth functionality to it. So I'll have that factory look, which doesn't really matter to me for the most part, but this DIN and a half size that the Impala has, it is a nightmare to find a radio that looks halfway decent in there. So I'm going to have Bluetooth functionality in here, so I can get on the envelope here. It does have a lot of punch for 180K. It really does. I'm just so curious to see what this new engine will do in this car, because it just runs so good. It's a fun car to drive too. I remember driving this when I had my temps to learn how to drive. And I didn't learn how to drive on this car, but just driving it with my dad in the passenger seat, I really disliked it because it kind of swayed all over the road. It sort of had this feeling like you couldn't just sort of relax and let it cruise like you wanted it to. But since the suspension's been modified and upgraded, it does handle so much better, and it just tracks straight and true so much better than it was in stock form. And I'll throw this out there and I'll say it, but with all the mods on the suspensions, it handles as good as or better around big sweeping turns and things like that than my Camaro does with all of its modifications. I don't know if it's the full frame, the long wheelbase, what it is, but it really handles better than you would expect when it sits in the driveway and you just look out at it. Other than that, I do have some other little things we're going to be working on. Going to switch some interior lights to LEDs for brightness and, you know, just to look more updated. I'm going to upgrade this driver's seat. I found a company here in Akron that does seat upgrades, and I'm going to have them sort of firm it up a little bit so it's kind of got some more bolstering, more support. I do have a new spoiler for the back. Had it sent to us, and I'm going to do a full review on that. That's coming, but it's kind of got more of a rake to it to sort of sport up the back end a little bit, and I think it'll sort of modernize the car a little bit. Not that it's not, it's ugly, not that it's out of date, I'd say, but it's close. It's in that range of, it doesn't look sleek and cutting edge like a Cadillac or something like that. It does have a nice round 90s look to it, and they did their best as what they could with a Caprice, but you can still tell it does have some of those Caprice looks. Little disclaimer with this car: you're not going to buy a car like this or do what I'm doing with a car like this or even go searching for one to maybe consider if you're worried about what people think. And I say that in a certain sense of, this car will not turn heads. If it does turn heads, I think it's going to be either to a car guy who knows what it is and is like, wow, I haven't seen an Impala SS that looks like that in years, because you don't. You see these and they are just sun-baked, blistered, rusty, trashed, and they're just barely hanging on. The other person that's going to turn the heads is going to be that person that's like, what is that? Why is that old car still on the road? And that does happen. Take my wife, for example. She completely thinks I'm insane for doing this, but that's not the point of it. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm not trying to get a car that's going to attract a lot of attention. It's just a car I want to drive with my family in it. I want to have fun in it, have some power behind it, and it's comfortable too. I can fit easily 3 full strollers in the trunk. I can fit easily 3 children in the back, and then on top of it I can fit another adult in the passenger seat. And you may think like, okay, great, you can do that, who cares? Well, that's kind of the point of this car. It's a fun sedan that you can drive and it's not something that's going to break the bank. The book value on these cars is so low. These only started in the 20s when they were new, so they're not worth a whole lot. When I was looking for cars for this purpose, as a family hauler, as something with 4 doors or an SUV or something that could haul my kid around, haul my wife around, and all the stuff that comes with having a family, I didn't really, there's only so many options out there. I am not the kind of guy that's going to go pick up a new Camry. I'm not the kind of person that's going to go get a new Malibu. I just won't, because maybe someday, maybe it's another car, but when there's so many other cool options, you got a V-Series, you got a G8, you got Trailblazer SS's, you have these. There's so many different things that can make life not boring. A Trailblazer SS, I do have one of those as my winter car. The problem with that is I'm averaging 14 miles per gallon. That's just unacceptable to take around. I mean, I don't think, I could really honestly afford that every single day all year long. It is very comfortable. It holds everybody. It does the job. But I kind of wanted a car to replace my Camaro that can still be driven, sort of like a summer-only type thing. And in Ohio, I'm not going to be driving this car or any rear-wheel drive car in the winter. I just don't really want to have the struggles. So another thing was on the table. I've looked at first-gen CTSVs. They're out there, sometimes low mileage. You have issues with those, and it's totally not out of the question, but you're looking for one in the type of price range that I would want, or the type of mileage and condition that I would want it, in the $20,000 range. And they're very tough to find, low mileage, that aren't abused, beat on, supercharged, anything like that. G8s are very cool too. Same thing though. They're tough to find. You're also getting into that Pontiac world where you might have some issues with parts, availability, things like that. The other one is, like I said, the Trailblazer, and then these. These are out there. People took these cars and parked them as in no miles. $20,000 buys one of these that has 10,000 or less miles. People are crazy out there. I don't want to point fingers, but some people do have them. They still have the window sticker in, plastic on the seats from the factory. They're asking 30-some grand. They're just not going to get it. This car hasn't gotten to that point where it's a major profit maker on you. You're going to get what you paid for it if you did that. So I guess the point is of me filming this and telling you all about this car, it's kind of like my intro to the project, letting you know what's going on and what I'm driving here. I'm very excited to see how this thing works, how it pans out, and then obviously I'll film it again once it's all done. First impressions of the new motor, the build. There's videos out there now of me working on it. Sort of a rolling blog, though, I guess you want to call it, of what is happening with this car. One thing I'd like to note that's interesting, if you do decide to ever get one of these cars, they are getting old. This car is going to be 20 years old next year, and certain things just are unobtainable. I've just been finding that you can't go to the dealership and pick up like a new switch assembly for the power windows. You can't. And being this opera gray, that's what I've seen it called, I could be wrong, but this gray interior, not a lot of caprices came with this. So when you do find interior parts, they're blue, they're maroon, they're different colors like that. So parts availability is something I'm curious about. I'm not too worried because the 180,000 miles of this car is my dad just driving down the highway on business. There isn't a lot of door opening and closing. I mean, this car, I think the wear on this car for switches, doors, latches, anything that would wear out is in the 50,000 mile range. It's not 180K worth. So that's why, like, the steering wheel's in great shape. The shifter's not beat up. The door panels are in pristine condition. Nothing's really beat on, abused, worn out. So when you're looking at these and you are in the market or you own one of these, that's something I think you need to be completely aware of. The lack of parts or the lack of availability on things, and it's only going to get worse. It just is. I did mention earlier the size of this thing, how it'll fit 3 kids in the back and 2 adults up front in major comfort, mind you, and also enough room in the back to take an entire family on a vacation for a week. It just has it. And in my opinion, if you can't fit everything a family needs in this trunk, you've done something wrong. You have people going, oh, you have kids, you need a minivan, you need an SUV. Personally, I feel like you don't. That's just my philosophy on it, if you want to call it that. With that being said, though, it is a big car. It is something that, you know, it's going to take up a lot of room on the road. It's wide, it's long, it's just big, and but it doesn't feel that big when you drive it. And the interesting thing is, if you look up the weight of this car, it clocks in right around 4,000 pounds. A new CTSV is over 4,200 pounds, and a new Camaro SS, and not the one that just came out yesterday, a new Camaro SS, like a 2011 model, 3,800 pounds. So judging by today's standards and safety equipment, wiring, and junk in cars from the factory, it's really not that heavy. It's not. And for the power, the torque, and the weight, and even the sleekness of it, this car is very round and very smooth, you know, on the outside body lines. It's a very, very quick car for the size. It is. The ironic part about this car is, and it's happening to me right now, you know, I was out on an open road, driving around, you know, enjoying the pedal, driving with the pedal, and kind of carving corners, for if you want to call it that, in this car. Now it takes me back to reality. Driving through the nightmare of mall traffic here to go run errands for the family, and that's kind of what this car is going to be used for. Not all the time. It'll be used for me to drive places, go to work, do different things like that, but you know, it's interesting because this is sort of going to be the natural environment and the point of this car. I can go take, I'm by myself right now, but I can go and take the wife and kids somewhere in this car in comfort. We have enough room for a car seat in the back. The seat up front isn't pushed all the way forward to fit. And now I'm going to the grocery store to go get different things that we need. And that's kind of what's funny about life. You know, I have a Camaro in the garage, and I've tried to do that with this, and it works, it does, but it just doesn't do it practically like this would. So I guess the point of me doing this, talking about this end of my day here, is you can still have fun in a four-door. You really can. I learned that last summer in the V-Sport I reviewed. I learned that in the Buick Regal I reviewed. And, you know, as much as, you know, you got to make those changes to accommodate everything that's going on, it doesn't really matter, because I still have 300 plus horsepower under the hood. I still have Coney shocks on my car and Goodyear tires, and yet I can still fit everybody and everything in the car. So if you're watching this and you're curious what I'm doing, why I'm doing, that's all of it. That's the plan. Stay tuned for more. I'm going to film with this as much as I can. There'll definitely be pictures, commentary on the website, hoagiesgarage.com. It's under its own heading, the Impala Project. I plan to do the motor swap this summer. I'm in the middle of the build right now. I plan to do the spoiler paint work soon, radio upgrades coming soon. So stay tuned for more, kind of to follow along if you're curious. And then obviously, you know, you're going to see the final product of, I'd say it's going to take, it's about a 6-month project since from start to finish here to do all this. But I appreciate you watching. Stay tuned for more coming next week. I have a Chevy Colorado to review, which would be very cool for another family hauler, but you know, it's going to be a different type of review. More product reviews coming to the website, to YouTube, everywhere else. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest here and there, and of course hoagiesgarage.com. Thank you again for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you again very soon.